You're welcome to Ghana.
Thank you.
And because of the conference, you're here. What can you say about the conference? How do you see the conference?
I think first of all, and I did miss last year. I was invited and I couldn't come, and this year was my first time. First of all, I want to congratulate the organization of the conference. I think the conference has been done in a way that is very informative. It allows that in a way you have different individuals in the energy sector to be able to see the different areas that can benefit from their experience. And this is why, because it's not just focused on oil, gas, the technology part is very important. So it is in a way a good way for us to be able to have an encounter once a year so we can discuss. I mean, clearly the countries are mainly African countries. We are discussing about African problems, but also African solutions. And I think events like that have to continue happening because it allows and emphasizes the importance of the technology. And, the experience that we all are having, sharing it, and it allows us to be able to understand what each one of the countries are doing and how we can learn from each other.
And talking about sustainability, what do you think we can do to sustain this conference?
Well, sponsoring is very important. So I think a lot of the companies need to understand not only the process of sponsoring, but the value that they will have by sponsoring. And I think that's something that it needs to be able to capture more participating, not just on Ghana, on the region, so service companies especially can understand the benefit for them to be able to come, being able to speak with high stakeholders on the different countries, but also have an infrastructure or I'll call it an event that they can express their concerns and also hear from those key political stakeholders what they're planning to do. And I think that's one of the things can be done for improving the sponsors. So maybe focus a lot on the service companies, on all those energy, in that energy sector.
Looking at AETC, championing energy transition, what's your take on that? Especially we've seen countries calling for us to drill and keep drilling, and some are, especially some African countries, are calling for we taking our time to transition. What's your take on AETC championing energy transition?
I think the conference AETC is doing a good job, and they need to continue with the right narrative. The problem of the energy transition is that it depends where you are to know what kind of narrative they are. For example, countries who already have invested in huge infrastructure of electricity, roads, a power plant, industrialization. Yes, they can think about fading from fossil fuel, but then other developing countries like ours that we don't have the grid, we don't have the roads, we need to focus on that key part. So clearly what we do believe, and I think the conferences do it correctly, it need to reiterate the importance that the new alternative resources are complementary. So they are not replacing anything. And that allows that the piece of the market that they are all involved, you have enough space for everybody. So really to reiterate that all those alternatives are not here coming to be able to completely fade from fossil fuel. Fossil fuel is still a very important resource for our development, and we need to be able to have a longer period processing. And then the last one that is more important is not just the complementary, but is the issue about the process. It's a process, and it has to be done gradually rather than immediately.
The theme for this year's conference has to do with to innovate, looking at financing and investments as well. You think that we have enough investments, and how can we source for investment, especially as we gear towards green transition?
Correct. The current view is that we don't have enough investment, that we need more investment. I have to disagree. I think our biggest problem has been how we have been developing our projects. Because you will understand, if any project is profitable, any bank will invest it. So even if it is fossil fuel, the rest, the problem is that a lot of the projects are not well prepared, well planned, and that's what create a problem. And then also people focus on working exclusively with already historical entities that I know, which are realizing there is other sources of funding. And those sources of funding, they are not being captured. Those sources of funding for Africa have been focusing on other industry. But clearly there is, I think the biggest issue is the well elaboration of projects. And that what really create an opportunity, because what the financier wants to hear, and this is a very clear question, is if I provide you the funds, what guarantee do I have that you are going to pay me back with interest?
The future of AETC. How do you envisage AETC?
I think EETC have to start broadening his horizon. I mean, even though he was born here in Ghana, even though he's a kid of Ghana, he have to be think more as a kid of the region, a kid of Africa. So he's a son or a daughter of the region. So he need to be able to capture the neighbors, because if he follows just the narrative that it is in Ghana for Ghanaians, every time people come, they will see it as a Ghanaian thing, and it's not a Ghanaian thing, it's a regional thing. So probably some of the organizations, what they're doing right now, they are rotating in different countries. So maybe one of the solutions will be that rotation. It will allow that the entire team and the one involved, they can see what other people are doing in their own area. So that's really what I see, and I will recommend the conference to focus on, is to reduce the view that it's a Ghanaian thing.
Thank you.
Thank you.